Alright, pups. Well, it's another day. Another bit of the project gonna get done. This one I'm kind of happy about. Yes, you're happy about the stairs, aren't you? You like that. So, I've got the trusses up, right? I've really been waffling on the idea of how I'm going to make the shelves, how I'm going to raise the trusses and keep them up there, how I'm going to rib out the walls for insulation. So the other day I just sat in the chair and I kind of rubbed my chin and I stared at it for a bunch of hours, and I would come up with an idea and I was like, yes, that's gonna work, but I don't like the idea of it. And then I'd come up with another idea and I'd be like, yeah, well, that's not really gonna work very much. And I come up with another idea and I'm like, oh man, that's gonna require a lot of material. So I tried to come up with something that was gonna be efficient. Here's some of my drawings, you know, with just gussets going across or fancy shaped pieces of wood and in different styles. I kind of started to run out of ideas and I started another page, and here's a big fat truss. Not to scale, sorry about that.
I apologize for the crudity of this model.
Yeah, no, Doc, it's not to scale.
And here's the wall of the vehicle and where the workbench is going to be. And I drew this and I thought, wow, that would make a triangle shape, which is very strong. It'll support the truss and the shelves. So I went over here and I kind of propped up a piece of wood here to see approximately where that would be and where the shelves would be. I had that measured out, and you know, drawing this line here was actually kind of fun. To find square for this line here, I measured over 15 inches, 20 inches, and then in between that mark and that mark, I found 25, which is this. So you've got 15, 20, 25. Where they intersect right here, I know that is square, 90 degrees. I couldn't measure off of anything else because the trailer's not exactly level. I could have measured down from here, that's fine. That's how I got that line. But to get this vertical line, I had to use a theorem. If you know who is accredited for that particular theorem, leave your comment below. Yeah, I also squirted some foam into these holes, which are going to get trimmed off and cut up. I put some Gorilla Glue in the holes that I made from the shelves. You can see actually it coming out on the other side in spots. Love Gorilla Glue. But anyways, to finalize the idea and figure out whether or not there would actually be room for a kayak or something on top of the workbench, I drew this scale drawing here. This is me at my height, you know, because that's important. I'm building this for me, I'm not building it for anybody else. And I'm building a workbench that might be able to hold up a kayak. I like the truss design, and I thought about cutting that curved shape out of a thicker piece, like a 2x6. And I was like, man, you know, I could picture 5 ribs on this side, 5 ribs on that side, and it feeling like I'm inside of a giant fish or something. And then where the workbench and the cabinets end, just have like a smaller piece there and there. It's somewhat efficient because I'm using the least amount of materials as possible, which is going to reduce the weight. It's going to look really cool, so every single time I'm in here, maybe uninspired, I'll be able to glance up at that and, you know, get a good feeling from the work that I've done. So I've got a few 2x left from previous projects, but they're going to be used elsewhere for shelves. I've determined how much more that I'm going to need and made myself a list. I think it's time to go back to the lumberyard and spend some more money, but man, it's going to be so worth it because I'll finally be able to put stuff away in a more permanent fashion. Wanna go for a ride, pups? Come on, let's go. For years and years, I've been building and building, and whenever I needed lumber, my go-to was always the big box stores. You know, places that used to cater to folks who were contractors. Once upon a time, I was a contractor. This place reminds me of what lumberyards are supposed to be like. Next thing you know, I was on the way back with all the lumber that I needed, for now. And after unloading, I had a lot of work ahead of me. As I edit this, I'm remembering the back pain I was feeling around this time. It was too much for me to go out kayaking, actually, and strangely enough, it wasn't enough for me to keep pushing forward with this project. According to my calculations, this should completely frame out the wall cabinets. I call them cabinets, but they're going to be shelves. The framework for the workbench and the truss supports, which will be part of the shelves. Might actually take a break though. What do you think, pups? Huh? Time for a little R&R? Yeah, I'll be right back. My break didn't last that long though. I was too excited to see this vision of mine manifest itself in reality. Bendy. I'm not getting a perfect arch here, but I think that's going to work for what I'm looking to achieve. Still got to sand this piece. Whew. And there's 9 more to do. This is going to take a while. I need a break. I think an ice pack and me watched a movie that night. The good thing was that I had a bunch of really cool, unique looking cutoffs that I might be able to work with someday. Alright, now that we have 10 of these ribs cut. Before I go and sand them down, I'm going to take care of the ledger board for the workbench and the supports that are going to go on the walls for shelves. Those are going to be made of 2x stock, and I've got them sitting out here waiting to be ripped in half, because there's no reason that they have to be 3.5 inches tall. I can rip them in half and get 2 boards out of 1, and that will cut down on the weight that's inside the trailer and of course the cost. The only thing is, it's going to take some time running all the boards through this. It's a good thing I ate my Wheaties. Okay, every 16 inches or so, I've got a screw holding this board to the wall. I kind of did that because I had this idea that now I can build up from there and get my trusses in place. However, if you see the red line where the board is, that represents the top of the frame. The blue line represents the top of the plywood. I chose 3/4 plywood because, you know, at least for the workbench, the shelves can be 1/2 inch, but I wanted something really substantial for a workbench. So I figured it's an additional 20 bucks a board, sheet rather, and I need 2 sheets of plywood to finish a workbench eventually. But see, now if I put ribs here going down all the way, I'd have to stop them short to leave room for plywood. That could make getting the plywood in there tricky. If I had the plywood down first, then I could put a board on that and kind of wedge it up there nice and tight. It would make building a lot easier. I can wedge the boards in here now, but then I'd have to notch the plywood around every single one. So what I didn't want to do is go out and buy 2 sheets of plywood, which are almost 100 bucks a piece nowadays. Man, it's spiraling. This project is spiraling out of control, and it all started from, I want to put solar panels up there. And now here I am working on the workbench. But, oh gosh, once there's a U-shaped workbench in here, then I can install the refrigerator underneath. I can make shelves for the batteries. I can start wiring the panels. All good things are going to come from this. This is like the base, the base upon which everything will be built. So I see a trip to the lumberyard again coming in my near future. I started feeling like a bit of a junkie. Like I would show up to the lumberyard like, hey, you guys have any more of them good 2x4s? For the time being, I worked through my lumber addiction with what I had. And I'll stop talking for a little bit and let you guys enjoy this build as it plays out. Well, I put a brace in here because what I was noticing is that this board has had a bow in it, despite the fact that these pieces were all exactly the same size. And this started out straight, so that means that that back wall had a hump to it. And I was able to push on this and kind of get that hump out of there. So I didn't want to build the rest of the workbench and have it all come out kind of cattywampus because of this being stretched. So by eliminating that, straightening this, what I want is the workbench to be square and for that to help square up the truck, which is a little bit bowed. I'm at a point now where everything has been symmetrical thus far. Slight variations, you know, like not having a truss there on that first rib. However, now I'm going to deviate from the symmetry thing because I want to be able to put a kayak up here, so I need a deep shelf there and a shallow shelf there. I mean, yeah, the symmetry is going to be off. You're going to have ribs that are symmetrical on the ceiling, but the workbench is kind of going to be wider there, shorter there. What that's going to do is when I walk in the door, and most of the time one door is open, one door is closed, so that kind of has you walking in on this side of the truck and kind of coming in towards the center. But by having a wider bench there and a shallower bench here, you don't have to walk off to center that much. The flow will be a lot more even. So yeah, ergonomics when it comes to a space and how it flows and works. You know, instead of being in the center, I'm going to be kind of like this, which is easier to get to the door in and out. I'll be able to come in with my kayak, put the kayak up on the table, almost like a patient on a operating board, and then behind me I'll have a shallow shelf with all my tools with which to do my operation. That's the plan, at least. I kind of had that drawn out on the paper here, even though I only drew one bench. I did say too small here, and I thought about extending it so that it would be wide enough to lay a kayak on without the kayak falling over. I was going to extend this from 24 inches, which would be a piece of plywood cut in half, one for each side. I was going to extend it one box, which is 3 inches, so 27 inches total. But I went outside and I measured one of the kayaks that had more of a flat bottom on it, and I realized I need more than that, maybe 29 inches off of the stud that's going to be on the wall eventually, which brought me way out to here. The plywood's going to go from the wall over. The finished wall is going to be shallower because of the studs going up and down. Anyways, from the wall to here was like 31 3/4, which meant I could come out only a certain amount left with my plywood, which was about here, minus 2 inches for an overhang, which which means the frame is here and it's big enough still for these shallow milk crates. How serendipitous. And the batteries are the same thing. These are just over 13 inches. And I'll have that much space underneath this cabinet or this workbench, and that'll be awesome. The fridge obviously will have to go on this side. But yeah, this is all working out. And I think it'll still look kind of symmetrical, because if I have short milk crates underneath this workbench and regular milk crates under this workbench, your eye, when you look down, it's not going to look kind of like off. So yes, all right, so now that I've made that decision, I'm going to cement that in by building this out to here, making a bigger worktop here and a smaller worktop there. It is the point of no return. Yeah, I didn't see that. Nice now, right? Starting to get a little excited here because things are taking shape. I'm in the mood of ripping boards, so what I'm going to do is all the lumber outside, I'm going to rip it down, cut it to size, put it up there temporarily until I get plywood. Then I'll take it down, put the plywood in, and really fasten everything really good. But for the time being, I'm going to make sure I have enough lumber because next time I go to pick up plywood, if I'm short a few boards, I can get that while I'm there. So I'm proceeding with the framing of the walls. Eventually, I'll be able to make stuff like this. Yes. I can't wait to show you guys how these ribs turn out. You'll just have to come back and join me in the next episode. Hope to see you there.